But as I said, I got sick a couple weeks ago with just a cold. Thank God it wasn't anything serious, because with what's going on in the world with the health care reform issue, and I got a lot of emails to JimCornette.com about my thing I said about Joey Styles, the things that I called him out on. Of course, he was immediately banned from his twittering and tweaking and twatting and all the other stuff he does.
Twatting.
As a result of the heat that he brought on himself and the WWF with his stupid comments. Hi, Joey, how you doing? You're probably listening, trying to steal some of my material. So everybody said, you ought to be more political, Jim, because we need to hear these type of things. And I didn't want to do this because, actually it's a wrestling discussion, a wrestling line, but at the same time, sometimes there's things more important than wrestling. And my new Cornette's commentary on JimCornette.com is going to be a part of that. Because I'm ticked off again because, I'm pro-Obama. Everybody knows that. I registered as a Democrat last fall. I said, and for the first time ever, I'd never voted before because I saw Obama speaking to and not at the American people, and I agreed with what he said. I don't mean that I'm a Democrat. I mean I'm an Obama-at because I'm pissed off at some of the Democrats, too, and I'll tell you why. Because one of the major planks in Obama's platform was a reset of the broken health care system in this country, and I can tell you because I'm self-employed, the cost of health insurance for a couple in their mid-30s to mid-40s, which is what I fall into with my lovely better half, Stacy, with no pre-existing conditions, no kids, is $10,000 a year. And I can tell you that when I had my left knee ACL fixed in 2006, it would have cost me almost $30,000 if I hadn't had insurance, and that was not, by the way, an elective procedure because I couldn't walk or straighten my leg out at the time. And I can tell you that over the past 25 years in the wrestling business, I've been lucky enough, fortunate enough, to pay about $1 million in state and federal income taxes, give or take a few $100,000. And it's bullshit that in this country, one catastrophic illness without insurance could leave me bankrupt, even though I have paid that amount of money to this government. So I don't know how people who maybe are not as fortunate as I've been are able to get, to get anything done or to get any health care or to get any insurance or to get anything fixed, or else whether they're just on their own or maybe they can be witch doctors. But, Obama has come out and said it's a fact the cost of health care, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security amounts to the largest percentage of our annual federal budget. The system is unsustainable. Something's got to be done. Social Security is going to be broke at this rate before I get to collect it. And if the amount of taxes that I've paid in leaves me with little or nothing, imagine what it's going to be like for the average person. And Barack Obama recognized this, and for all the talk about bankrupting our children or grandchildren or the Republicans, he's the only one to recognize the need to do something about the country's long-term good instead of worrying about what the voters care about immediately because he wants to be remembered in 100 years for having made a difference in the quality of our lives, or whether he gets reelected in 4 years. So he puts forth a plan to revamp the single most expensive and important obstacle facing Americans today, and the Republicans, my old friends, bought and paid for by the special interest lobbyists, the big pharmaceutical companies, looking out for their election prospects, their old rich white constituency, their insistence that the United States of America remain the only country in the developed world with a health care system that discriminates against its own people at the expense of its citizenry, the benefit of its richest 2%, it does what it does best. It engages in obstructionist, fear-mongering campaign against reform. You've seen it. You watch the news, don't you, Tommy?
Yeah, I do.
Somebody even sent me an email and said, why do you treat Tommy like a dick? I want to tell everybody right now, Tommy and I are old friends, and I always treat my old friends like dicks.
I don't think you seem like a dick at all.
Well, thank you, but I do. The Republicans mobilize the misguided, the uninformed, the extremists. They gin up controversies. They engage in a misinformation campaign to misrepresent the intent of reform to preserve the American way, and the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, the sick get sicker, and all the Americans lose their chance at a better way for another generation because they're already blocking main portions of this bill. And look at what people said about Medicare before Lyndon Johnson got it passed. You aren't old enough to remember that, but it was the same thing. It's socialized medicine. Oh, this is so bad. The Republicans, it just came out that Tom Ridge was forced by the Bush administration to raise the terror alert level in the 2004 election because people in times of fear and chaos always go with the status quo. That just came out. So now they invented the Nazi policy, the death panel, the useless twat Sarah Palin, who resigned her publicly elected post so she could cash in on the undeserved fame granted to her by the Republican Party when she was the publicity stunt last year. If you don't believe me about that, just ask Levi Johnson, the kid who knocked up her teenage daughter. He was in the house hearing all this conversation when he wasn't doing something else, probably in a back room. You've seen the town hall meetings. Here is the worst part of it, to me, the worst part. They are preying on the senior citizens, one of the most vulnerable groups of all Americans. They're generally living on fixed incomes. They come from a generation where it was not just acceptable, but actually incumbent on Americans to believe in their elected officials, and they prey on them, where the town hall meetings, where these elderly people come up and say, I don't want somebody else telling me or my family it's time for me to die. And even when Obama comes out and says we're not going to pull the plug on grandma, the point is, the whole point of that provision of the bill was if somebody's family member was terminally ill, my mother was in 2002, if they had to consult a physician for a living will or end-of-life planning, the insurance company would be forced to reimburse them. And all of a sudden from that became a Nazi death panel. I think somebody ought to have a death panel for Sarah Palin. I'd like to put my hands around her neck and squeeze her britches full for them preying on the elderly. Then they say, well, it'll provide insurance for the illegal aliens. Let's get the patriots. Now we've got the senior citizens. Let's get those patriots. And Barney Frank, who was just out on television last week at a town hall, and they said, it'll provide insurance for illegal aliens. Read the bill. So he goes and he reads the bill where it specifically says it won't provide coverage for illegal aliens, and they boo him. And Barney Frank, showing a lot more balls than most of the Democrats have, nipped up, asked that woman, lady, what planet do you spend most of your time on? I'm not going to argue with you. It'd be like arguing with a dining room table. But, then they got this conservative radio talk show host, Michael Levine, said, because Barney Frank's gay, why should I listen to a talk show, or why should I listen to a guy who places his penis where other men evacuate their bowels? And I say, why should I give a shit where Barney Frank sticks his dick as long as he does the job he's elected for, honestly and straightforwardly?
Sure.
More Democrats than Republicans are gay, at least openly, not just confined to the airport bathrooms or the male escort services, because it seems like they're people that don't care how somebody else lives their life as long as they don't bother them. But then you got these gun nuts. How in the world has it become acceptable in this country to go to a public political gathering, especially featuring the first black president of the United States, with a gun strapped to your hip? Are we talking about Lincoln, the Kennedys, Martin Luther King, McKinley, the attempts on Gerald Ford, and these knuckle-dragging mouth breathers that they know the volatility of the lunatic fringe, and they think that somehow they're making a point about the American freedoms they have by taking a semi-automatic rifle to a gathering involving the first black president of the United States. And the Republicans won't come out and condemn this because they give it their tacit approval, because they want as much chaos and controversy as they can get to totally obscure what's actually being trying to be done. What do these gun nuts think they're proving? Is it 1804 and those pesky British are going to come back and try to take over their colonies again? Or maybe Al-Qaeda's going to invade Kansas City in a couple of minutes? Or are they just trying to call attention to themselves because they're fucking goofs?